we've had so many people from what I have sometimes derisively called cubicle land, and that's not fair, but, not people working in the arts, not people working in the sciences specifically, but people, the vast majority of white collar workers out there in America who are saying, it's not mandatory yet, but what do I do when it becomes mandatory? The training. What should I? What can I do? And so one of the most remarkable communiques I got this week was from a professional. She authorized me to share this. I'm anonymizing her slightly here. She's a professional woman in her 30s who works at the Department of Human Services in Minneapolis, which, of course, as we all know, is the city at the epicenter of current protests and riots. She is a long-term resident. She loves Minneapolis so deeply and cannot believe what she is seeing there. I'm not actually going to read the part of her letter that talks about what she's seen in the riots. I mean, I could, I suppose, we could come back to it, but just these two paragraphs. With regard to what she wrote to me, and like I said, she told me I could share this, but only if I said I was not going to say what city she was in to help anonymize her. And she said, no, please say that I'm from Minneapolis, because I want people to understand that what they're seeing in the videos is not what my city is. And I just felt that so strongly, because we both felt that so strongly with regard to Evergreen. Mm-hmm. That is not the best of what Evergreen was. That's not the best. That's not what it could do. It was allowed to be taken over. As this letter writer says, my city has been allowed to be taken over.
It was a small quadrant that became the college almost instantly.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a professional woman in her 30s who writes, in part, after George Floyd's death over the last month, I have received a blitzkrieg of communications from my union, leadership, and various equity committees about the structural changes they wish to force on our union, in our programs, and on the agency as a whole. The communications, which I've attached to this message, are riddled in buzzwords from critical race theory and includes instructions for white people in particular to do the anti-racism work. My job is not now in immediate jeopardy. So far, everything has remained voluntary. But our commissioner has informed us the agency will require anti-racism training in the future and possible restructuring of programs. This makes me very nervous. I fear that if this ideology takes hold, it will destroy the agency. I also worry that my job might be on the line in the future if I refuse to do the training or speak out publicly against it. I've spoken to one employee who's also a good friend about my fears, and he seems to think that everything will be fine because if things get out of hand, people will speak out against it when the time comes. I'm not so optimistic. So I do have one more paragraph to read, but that just gives me chills reading it aloud. People will speak out against, having faith in the idea that people will speak out against it when the time comes, misunderstands that you won't know when the time has come. What this author is saying is, I think the time has come and I don't know what to do. And that's what we're hearing from people. And I would say one thing, and I did respond to her at some length, but one thing I would add to what I responded with was, if you have a friend who can see this as you can, and they think that people will start speaking up later, they won't. And you need to talk to him, your friend. This will be one of the easier conversations because he can already see it and say, why do we think that people will start speaking up later? It will only get harder to do so. It will only get harder to do so.
That's the key. Not only will they not know, because the time is now, right? This is already out of hand. If they're not speaking up now, then they've misunderstood where we are. But the problem is that this ideology is discovering how powerful it is. And because it's discovering how powerful it is, at the point you get to this mythological place where you're going to know it's gone too far, its ability to leverage against you will be that much greater. So, I mean, we know from experience, it doesn't happen. The people who were going to stand up did so early.
Yeah.
Right? We have not accumulated almost anyone in the Evergreen community after a certain point. Everybody who kept their wits about them spoke up in one way or another, and then the rest have been silent. And so even the ones who know better, silent to this day.
Yep, that's right. So one more paragraph from the same letter writer. Should I say something publicly now or wait until the mandatory training starts and refuse to take them? Take the training and offer criticism? Quietly warn others against this? Simply ignore it and hope it goes away? I know you've offered general advice already, but speaking publicly now may not be the best approach. If I'm going to stick my neck out, I'd like it at least to be effective. Do you have any advice for what to do about the changes enacted by the Minneapolis City Council? Should I call it a lost cause and abandon the city I love? Should I buy a gun?
So
I told you last night as I was reading this, I said, I've just received an amazing letter and I want to read part of it. So this was your first time hearing this as well.
I relate to it. And I do think we have an obligation to speak to the question. What I can't say is that there is a good answer. There are better answers and worse answers, but there are no good answers.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, I could read part of my answer here, and it says much that.